Well, hello there, my NextGen fam, and welcome to another episode of Mentor Moments with NextGen HQ. We are so excited for this upcoming interview, so please make sure that you're sitting comfortably, you have your notebook, and you're ready for the lessons to come. We are so honored to have Rita Choula on with us today. Rita is the Director of Caregiving at AARP and is an expert, a total expert, on all internal and external family caregiving initiatives. With her background in health, information technology, and educational sectors, Rita holds a super unique perspective on how these industries align and how we can leverage each to provide superior care to all communities of different shapes, sizes, ages, and backgrounds. Rita, thank you so very much for coming on with us today.
Thank you for having me. This is fantastic.
So I've just been chatting with Rita, catching her up on all of the good stuff about NextGen, and I think it's about time that we just kind of dive into the interview, Rita. So we're going to start with a little bit of a NextGen HQ tradition with some rapid fire questions. So
Okay.
whatever comes to mind is your answer.
Sounds good.
Amazing. What is one book that you'd recommend to others?
One book. I am actually reading Barack Obama's latest book. And I actually I thought, is this going to be a lot? What is he going to talk about? But it's really given some really great insight into his presidency, into what's been happening after his presidency, and just kind of his processing, which I've always been interested. How do you go from being a president to not being a president anymore? What are you thinking through?
Exactly. I've also had that same exact question before pop to mind and wondering what that looks like. So I'll have to definitely dive into this book for sure.
Absolutely.
What is one productivity hack that you found especially useful in these work at home settings?
You know, I have always been a fan of Outlook. And I know there's like a ton of other programs out there. But what's difficult for me is finding time to really focus in my day. I get a ton of emails, I get a ton of interruptions, and I'm not always good at blocking out time for myself on the calendar. And I was taught about one feature within Outlook that automatically puts focus time in. And now I utilize that and I automatically have focus time. So I've been so appreciative of that.
I love that. There's nothing better than kind of just falling into that deep focus mindset and getting through a ton of work.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
Absolutely.
Who's a caregiver in your life that you cherish?
A caregiver that I cherish. You know, I cherish a very good friend of mine who has adopted two children and is actually taking care of her mother as well, and has been doing so for the last several years. And I think the thing that I cherish so much about her is her selfless nature. But also her ability, and I look up to her because I'm not good at this, her ability to step away and take time for herself and know when she needs replenishment as well. So in this model, or these days of self-care, she truly does emulate what that means.
Oh, I love that answer. I think we could all use some more lessons on self-care. So please tell her to start sharing her journey with others too.
Absolutely.
And then finally, a fun one to end. What's your spirit animal?
Oh, that is a good one. Does it have to be real? Because my daughter would say it's a unicorn because I've always loved unicorns. But if it
Oh,
has to be a real animal, I would say it's a bear. Since I'm always a fierce advocate, and I like bears because they can be to themselves, minding their business. But if you mess with their young or someone in their family, they're going to come for you. So it's a bear.
I love that. So unicorn slash bear, maybe all together. I also call myself a mama bear, especially when it comes to my team members.
That's
So I
great.
understand the protective blinders that go up.
Absolutely.
Amazing. Well, now that we know you a little bit better with those personal questions, we now kind of just want to dive into your story and learn a little bit more about what your journey has looked like, how you were able to find AARP, kind of get into the juicy stuff, if you will.
Right.
Or first off, we're going to go a little bit into your background because as I mentioned in your bio, I know that you have a lot of different areas of expertise, it seems, kind of spanning from health to technology, education. I would love to know, with all of these different passions that it seems that you have, what was the one experience where you figured out they were all actually connected and they were beautifully aligned that has led you to where you are now?
You know, it's really interesting, and that's a great question. I appreciate you asking it. When I left college, I went straight into the corporate world and just knew that's where I belonged. And then I got a little bit antsy there because it was a very formal environment. And I'm dating myself with what I'm getting ready to say, but then there was an opportunity at America Online, and I went there, and it was completely different than what I was used to, but it was still this corporate mindset, even with the entrepreneurial spirit. I'm very passionate about making a difference in the lives of people. And you can do that, and you can do that in a corporate environment. You can do that wherever, but I'm more of a hands-on person in that way. So an opportunity became available for me to become the vice principal at a private elementary school. So it was pre-K 3 through 8th grade. So I had 3-year-olds to 13-year-olds. And at the same time, I was able to use my operational skills, my administrative skills, networking skills to really be able to be a co-pilot in that school of 400 to 500 kids, and then the teachers themselves. And it also gave me the opportunity to be very creative. I love young children and teenagers, and then I love older adults. And the ability to weave the generations together, to come at it from an intergenerational aspect is so important to me. And that particular position allowed me to do that. And then from there, I realized, okay, this being real, I knew I wasn't going to be able to afford that type of position forever. So I didn't know what I wanted to do. And right about that same time, my grandmother, who had taken care of me most of my life, really needed my help. She was in her older 80s, upper 80s, should I say, and began to need my help more. And so in that caregiving responsibility, I quickly transitioned into more of a consulting role. I took a job that was a straight 9 to 5 so that I could be a caregiver, because at that time, employers just weren't great at really supporting caregivers. But then I ended up at AARP. She passed away, and I really thought about, what older adults needed, and my experience being a caregiver to her, and really wanting to be with older adults and to support and help them. And I ended up at AARP.
Ended up at AARP, but it still seems very much connected to what you started with, kind of that educational, just helping others and impacting their lives in whatever way kind of presents itself to you, let's say.
Absolutely.
I love that. So flash forwarding now into your work with AARP, I see that you definitely have an entrepreneurial spirit. You mentioned creativity there before, and I know that you've very recently led the production of a series of instructional videos and kind of taken that path of creativity and entrepreneurship, if you will. So I would love if you could share a little bit about that, because I feel like for a lot of our individuals watching this, they want to be entrepreneurs, they want to build, they want to impact, but they're in full-time jobs or they're in part-time jobs. How would you encourage them to bring a little bit of entrepreneurship to their life in whatever role that they have?
I really appreciate this question. And I did not realize even what entrepreneurship was until I was in grad school, and one of my professors started talking about it. And I was working at AARP when I was in grad school. And when I talked about some of the things that I wanted to do, and I'm very much a systems change person. From wherever I am, I get a little bit antsy. And he said, you're an entrepreneur, right? And I'm like, what in the world? And so now that I know what it was, he taught me really how to go with it. And I've had the support and leadership of managers at AARP that are very much entrepreneurs as well. Sometimes that can be a challenge because the organization every organization has goals, has strategies, has priorities. but it's finding a way to be creative within the box, so to say, of some of those strategies, and thinking of ways to deliver on things that will improve or help the organization that you're in, but as well feed that spirit that you have. I think it's extremely important, whether we are entrepreneurs or entrepreneurs, that you have to have your spirit fed. It's very difficult getting up every day and going into work or working from home or whatever it is if you're not motivated, if you're not moved by what you do. And that eventually led to the development of these videos. And that really came from having conversations with people in the field, with family caregivers, to get a better understanding of what it was that was needed, and trying to be creative about how we could deliver that.
So entrepreneurship, it seems from what you're saying, is a little bit of still being super motivated, loving that the role that you're currently in and feeling really inspired by the mission, but wanting to bring a little bit more to the table, if you will, and think outside of the box to, at the end of the day, help the company's mission, right? Not only yourself and putting yourself in a position to create, but putting the company in a position to more so succeed.
Absolutely. You're spot on with that. I mean, I think that is the key to entrepreneurship, because if you're not in alignment in some ways with what is going on in your organization, then you won't be successful. But quite often, you're able to, by bringing that spirit of innovation, a lot of people would call it an innovative spirit, by bringing that in and learning how to navigate and network within that organization to make this happen. I think it actually gives you an opportunity to connect with people within your organization that you might not normally do, and give you opportunities to be seen in ways that might not have been there before.
Absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love that. Opportunities to be seen in new ways. That's so special. Which kind of leads me to my next question that I'd love to ask you about, because it feels very much as though the healthcare industry has been hit hard over the last few months with everything that we're facing with the pandemic and what people are just having to go through and adjust. But were there any areas that you yourself felt were hit very hard within your day to day, and how have you kind of had to pivot and be a little bit creative and still figuring out, how do I help caregivers? How do I reach them in a very new system that we find ourselves in?
It's interesting. I think the work that I do within caregiving, if anything, this pandemic, COVID-19, has really highlighted a lot of the work that we've been doing for a long time. We've known for quite some time that family caregivers are more often than not home alone, as our research says, doing really complex care. Things that they do not get trained to do every day, and they're doing it alone. What we see now is that with COVID, that's even more a case. But people didn't see that before. They thought of the family caregiver as the daughter who would pick up her mom and take her to the doctor. And while that is still the case, there's a light shown on they're doing so much more than that. And not only that, but they need help doing it. And I think what this pandemic has done is there are so many more people affected by this, whether someone is younger, whether someone is older in a nursing home, at home, their children. It has just made all of the things that family caregivers have struggled with and been challenged with for decades more the norm than not.
So there's actually been quite a positive, if you will say, in all of this, especially kind of for the caregiving industry, just to make it more a part of the conversation rather than something that people don't think about or is kind of pushed under the rug in a lot of instances.
Yeah, I call it an unfortunate opportunity. We would never wish a pandemic on anybody. But now that there is one and we're living in the midst of it, it's what lessons, after this is said and done, hopefully sooner than later, what lessons have we learned from this? If we walk out of this and people's lives haven't been significantly changed, if systems haven't been changed, if the culture within organizations is still the same, then this could be for naught. We have to walk away with a better understanding and a reflection of how we can make lives better.
Absolutely. And I think you're talking to people, a lot of millennial and Gen Z leaders here who are listening to every word you're saying and who want to be a part of that change and a part of that impact. So I think this comes at perfect time.
Fantastic.
And on that note, I know we're taking up a bit of your time here, so I want to make sure that we get wrapped up. But as far as creating that better future and changing systems and cultures, home life, work life, all of that, we at NextGen do believe that the next generation is going to be really impactful in leading those waves and bringing about change. So Rita, if you could say what your hope for the next generation of leaders would be, what would you say?
You know, I would say, and I'm very hopeful for the next generation of leaders. I'm a proud Gen Xer, but I am very hopeful because what I see is a compassionate generation that looks in many ways different. It's a very diverse generation, racially, ethnically, and I think the experiences of the millennial and Gen Z generations are very different based on economics, based on racial injustices and lessons learned from that, based on so many different things. And so the opportunity is to really seek out what you're passionate about and find a place where you can make significant change. And knowing that that significant change doesn't happen necessarily right out of the box, right? That you have to be patient with yourself and you have to take time. I think a really important piece that we miss is it shouldn't be generation versus generation versus generation. We're really all in this together. And the more that we understand that, and the more that it's not millennials learning from boomers or Gen Xers, it's all of us learning from each other and really using our gifts creatively to make substantive change. And that can be in any field, in any way, but it's just a better understanding of weaving things together and working together to bring about change.
You're speaking my language. This sounds right up our alley with the community talk and how we are all in this together. We are learning with one another, and that's how we create that brighter tomorrow, right? By when we're united with a common front to just make it a little bit of a better world.
Absolutely.
I love that. Well, Rita, we have come up to about the 20-minute mark or so, but just so we can go ahead and make sure that people can find access to everything that you're doing, everything that AARP is doing, what's the best way that a next gener could get connected to yourself and AARP?
Well, I am on Twitter, so I would love for people to reach out in that way, either through direct message or just contacting me directly, and that's at RCHOULA. I can also be emailed at rchoula@aarp.org. We also have 2 websites that I would like to bring up so people can look at our resources and learn more about caregiving and about what we're doing. That is aarp.org/no longer alone, and also aarp.org/caregiving. So through one of those channels, we would love to get more information about what you're doing, what your interests are, and any questions. This is about us learning and sharing with each other.
Learning together. That's what we're all about. Rita, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with us today. It was truly such a pleasure.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Next Geners, we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.